From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America, your global pit stop for the latest news and headlines from the United States and around the world. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. We'll get you a roundup of all the day's top stories, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow has no intentions of going to war with NATO, but will shoot down F-16 supplied by the West to Ukraine. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba visits India ahead of the peace summit this summer. He says Kyiv sees New Delhi as a powerful international voice. A California judge recommends Trump's former election lawyer John Eastman, the architect behind the effort to challenge his 2020 election loss, be disbarred. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos says his country will not be cowed into silence by Beijing after confrontations in the South China Sea that injured Filipino troops and damaged vessels. And former billionaire crypto boss Sam Bankman-Fried, convicted of fraud and money laundering, will be sentenced by a New York court today. Prosecutors are seeking 40 to 50 years in prison for the ex-FTX CEO. We begin with updates on the Israel-Hamas war, and specifically Benjamin Netanyahu's abrupt about-face. In a sharp reversal by the Prime Minister, Israel has now asked Washington to reschedule a high-level meeting on military plans for Rafah.
The Prime Minister's office has agreed to reschedule the meeting dedicated to Rafah. So we're now working with them to find a convenient date that's obviously going to work for both sides. But his office has agreed to reschedule that meeting that would be dedicated to Rafah, which is a good thing.
What are the sticking points on it?
So I can confirm that talks continue, and the United States is actively engaged in those conversations. We remain hopeful that we can broker a deal to secure the release of hostages and establish a temporary ceasefire. This is something that we've been asking for some time. A ceasefire and this hostage deal obviously would allow us to bring home some hostages to their family, to their loved ones.
Netanyahu abruptly called off the planned visit to Washington by senior delegation after the United States abstained and did not veto a UN Security Council resolution which called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Now later, Netanyahu said his decision to cancel the planned delegation visit was a message to Hamas that Israel would not bend to growing international pressure to halt the war in Gaza.
I thought
the US decision in the Security Council was a very, very bad move. The worst part about it and the bad thing about the US decision in the United Nations Security Council was that it encouraged Hamas to take a hard line and to believe that international pressure will prevent Israel from freeing the hostages and destroying Hamas. And therefore, my decision not to send the delegation to Washington in the wake of that resolution was a message to Hamas. It was a message first and foremost to Hamas. Don't bet on this pressure. It's not going to work. And I hope they got the message.
Now, U.S. officials have confirmed that the talks which have restarted are focusing on Israel's Rafah operation. Reports say Netanyahu is planning to send two top Israeli officials, the Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer and the National Security Advisor Zaki Hanejbi, to Washington as early as next week. The delegation will be discussing Israel's plans of a ground offensive into the southern Gaza city of Rafah, which is currently sheltering millions of displaced civilians.
We do think it's important that that meeting happen. As we've said, we think that the plan that Israel has said it intends to pursue with respect to Rafah is one that would be a mistake, that would have enormous, a terrible impact on the civilian population there and would weaken Israel's security. And we think there's a better way. And we want to have the opportunity to present that better alternative to Israel. So we do think it's important that that meeting take place.
Now, so far, Israel has outright rejected all of Washington's appeals to call off the planned operation. And speaking to a bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers, Netanyahu said that Israel has no choice but to move into Rafah as the country's very existence is on the line. Netanyahu also said that victory in Gaza and eliminating the Hamas leaders there could be achieved in just a matter of weeks. Now, earlier this week, the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant met senior U.S. officials in Washington, but the talks failed to reach any agreement on how Israel would, in fact, move forward in Rafah. However, both sides have agreed to continue the talks in the coming days and weeks. Now, when President Joe Biden needs advice, there are two people who he can turn to who know what it's like to sit behind the Resolute desk. Of course, we know one of those individuals is the former President Bill Clinton, and the other is obviously former President Barack Obama. And tonight, New York City will witness an extraordinary moment in history as the three U.S. presidents come together on one stage. Now, in a dramatic show of strength, Barack Obama and Bill Clinton are coming together to rally for a second term for President Joe Biden at the famed Radio City Music Hall. Thousands of people are expected to attend the one-of-a-kind extravagant fundraising event. And fundraisers, even with presidents, are typically seen as small affairs. Dozens or sometimes hundreds will gather to hear a speech from the candidate, which is usually followed by a few questions. But this one is going to be a star-studded event. In fact, famous late-night show host Stephen Colbert will moderate the conversation with the three presidents. Stars and celebrities are expected to attend the high-priced event with tickets going for as high as $500,000. And the event is expected to raise a whopping $25 million. Now, this would set a new record for the most money raised for a single political event. A fundraiser featuring President Biden and Obama in December raised nearly $3 million. And to date, former President Barack Obama's additional efforts to help his former vice president have already raised more than $15 million for Biden's re-election efforts. Already, President Biden is experiencing an enormous cash advantage over his financially strapped challenger, former President Donald Trump. In fact, current reports show that the Biden-Harris campaign already has more than $153 million in cash on hand. Now, certainly tonight's event amid the bright lights of New York City is a far cry from Donald Trump's recent attempt to raise money for his presidential efforts, selling Bibles for $59.99. A video of the ex-president pitching Bibles was featured on his Truth social media site just recently. Tonight's event, however, features perhaps the two most popular ex-presidents over the last 4 decades and certainly signals a shift in the presidential race that's expected to both be hard fought and come down to the wire. Now, prior to President Biden, former President Bill Clinton was the last Democratic president to unseat a Republican president. His victory over George H.W. Bush earned him the nickname the Comeback Kid. In fact, Bill Clinton is still widely respected and beloved by the Democratic base. Now, the last time we saw these three presidents together, it was during the COVID pandemic when they were making public service messages to combat the deadly epidemic. Now the three members of the most exclusive club in America will come together once again as a plot the return of President Biden to the White House. Now, reports say Obama made it clear that he believes that the November rematch with Donald Trump will be incredibly close. And Thursday's Democratic display of solidarity in New York City is in sharp contrast to Donald Trump's isolation from other Republican leaders. In fact, his own former Vice President Mike Pence is not willing to endorse his bid for another White House term. And while Biden will be busy at a fundraising event tonight in New York City, Donald Trump will be in Long Island to attend the wake of a New York City police officer who was shot and killed during a traffic stop in Queens. Now, it will be a rare occasion when 4 presidents will be in one area other than Washington on the same day. And shifting focus to the Caribbean, where Haiti has been gripped by relentless violence for weeks now. Masked gang members armed with high-powered rifles, shotguns, and automatic weapons have become a common sight in the city's capital, Port-au-Prince, firing weapons, blocking major roads, and essentially holding the city hostage. The gangs have terrorized the Haitian people with no end in sight. In fact, the vast cache of arms and weapons are so potent and diverse that it far surpasses that of the country's own police force. Now, ironically, Haiti does not produce any weapons. It has no firearms or ammunition manufacturing facilities or capability. So how are these gangs getting these deadly weapons? A UN report in January stated that guns and ammunition were being smuggled into Haiti by land, air, and mostly by sea from the United States, and in particular from the state of Florida. The report said that the weapons are frequently procured through proxy purchases in the United States, where gun laws are not as strict. And once procured, these firearms are transported to Florida, where they are concealed and shipped to Haiti. The report adds illegal weapons are hidden in shipping containers carrying donations like toys and clothes, electronic equipment, frozen food items, or even in the hulls of the freighters themselves. The U.S. Homeland Security investigations also reported a surge in firearms trafficking from Florida to Haiti between 2021 and 2022. Now, last year, the U.S. State Department indicated it had plans to establish a new policing unit in Haiti to address weapons being trafficked into the country. Now, there is no exact number on how many trafficked arms are currently in Haiti, but the weapons are fueling the staggering surge in gang violence in Haiti, plunging the country further into chaos with each passing day. The escalation of violence has sparked an exodus from the capital city.
When I heard the shots, I shut myself in a tent. If I'd gone outside, I would have died in the courtyard. There was a lot of shooting outside. I was making my bed with these bags and it was raining. On the bed, I felt a bullet hit my leg. I felt my flesh tear. I saw my blood lying there. The bullet is still inside. They did not take it out. If they had, I'd be disabled.
At this very moment, heavily armed bandits are storming my shop. Oh Lord, please don't let them set fire to it. In any case, what's to stop them from getting into the National Penitentiary? It's as if they were already there.
We have no authorities, no leaders. We have no one. We have nothing. It's everyone for themselves. I can't even get to my home, and I really want to go home. I want to leave, since it's each person for themselves and we have no authority. I don't even know what to say.
Now, it's been more than 2 weeks since the country's prime minister resigned, but the details of a presidential transition council have still not been revealed. And with no head of state and effectively no government, Haiti's people are trapped in yet another vicious cycle of violence powered by illegal guns. And now to news from Latin America, where diplomatic spat is brewing between Colombia and Argentina. Colombia has now ordered the expulsion of Argentina's diplomats. The order came after Argentine President Javier Milei called his Colombian counterpart Gustavo Petro a terrorist and murderer. But this is not the first time Milei has made such remarks about Petro. In fact, earlier he called Petro a murderous communist. Our next report offers more on the growing tit for tat.
Latin American nations, Colombia and Argentina, are at loggerheads. A diplomatic row has erupted between the two after Argentine President Javier Milei made a contentious statement against his Colombian counterpart Gustavo Petro. In an interview, Milei called Petro a terrorist and a murderer. Colombia hit back with a quick response. Bogotá called Milei's comments denigrating and ordered the expulsion of Argentine diplomats. The Colombian Foreign Ministry did not specify how many diplomats would be expelled, but said that the order will be communicated through diplomatic channels. However, reports suggest that Argentine envoy in Bogotá, Gustavo Jugala, is likely to be expelled. Bogotá also said that the Argentine president's comments have deteriorated the trust of their nation. Colombia accused Milei of offending the dignity of a democratically elected president. This is not the first time when Milei's comments have irked Colombia. The Argentine president has been targeting his Colombian counterpart over his past links to a guerrilla force called M19 that was demobilized later. In January, Milei called Colombia's first left-wing president a murderous communist who was sinking the country. The duo engaged in a verbal spat back then as well. Petro responded to Milei, saying he had no idea about communism and socialism.
Those who attack us have no idea what communism and socialism are. Socialism is the way of production through which the state owns the means of production. That is not what we are looking for.
He even compared the Argentine president to Hitler. The rift was out in the open when Petro described Milei's election victory a sad moment for Latin America. Milei, who is an economist turned politician, assumed office in December last year. He has been making headlines since he came to power over his fiery rhetoric. Reports suggest that Milei also criticized the Mexican president Andrés Manuel López Obrador, calling him an ignoramus. In March, he compared abortion to murder while speaking to high school students in the country. Over years, relations between Argentina and Colombia have typically been stable. But ever since Milei assumed office, the ties between the two Latin American nations have soured deeply.
And finally, to the latest from the investigation into American rapper Sean Diddy Combs. Now Prince Harry has been named in a $30 million lawsuit against the hip-hop mogul, who is facing charges of sex trafficking and sexual abuse. The lawsuit suggests that the Duke of Sussex was one of the guests at Combs' infamous parties allegedly attended by sex workers and underage girls. However, there is no suggestion of any wrongdoing by the prince. Our next report goes into the salacious details.
Another prince and another royal mess. Prince Harry's name has surfaced in a sexual assault lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs, the American rapper who has been accused of sex trafficking and sexual abuse. He faces a $30 million lawsuit. Record producer Rodney Jones claims the rapper sexually assaulted him. He's accused Combs of being a serial sex abuser. The 73-page lawsuit suggests the American rapper drew influential guests to his infamous parties. Combs' gatherings were allegedly attended by sex workers and underage girls. The document in the court names the Duke of Sussex as one of Combs' guests. However, there is no suggestion of any wrongdoing by the prince. He has only been named as one of the examples of Combs' celebrity guest lists that included famous athletes, political figures, artists, musicians, and international dignitaries. Earlier, the American billionaire was pictured with Prince Harry and William after performing at the concert for Diana on the late princess' birthday in 2007. And in 2012, Combs said that he wanted to hang out with Prince Harry during his UK trip. But there have been no reports of Prince Harry's association with the American rapper, who has been in a legal hot soup. In November last year, Combs' former girlfriend Dar and B-singer Cassie also sued him. She accused the rapper of raping her and being plied with drugs for 10 years. His suit was settled a day later. Combs is facing similar lawsuits from 3 other women. The complainants alleged that he had sexually abused them and participated in revenge pornography. Recently, his Miami and Los Angeles properties were searched by the federal agents in connection with the probe on sex trafficking charges. The 54-year-old rapper has denied all allegations, calling them pure fiction. He called the claims sickening and said that his accusers were looking for a quick payday.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden. How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.